Hey guys, Kendall with Black Ovis, and I'm down at the Crispi World Headquarters, well, North American Headquarters here in Linden, Utah. And we stopped by to do a couple videos, look at some new 2026 product, and I wanted to go over the various soles that Crispi uses on their boots. That's one of the areas, I think it's probably one of the last things that guys look at, at least in my opinion. When you're searching for a boot, a lot of time you're focused on what is the upper material, what is the flex or the breathability, other elements, what is the ankle support, what am I getting from basically above the sole? And I think one of the things my dad told me years ago, like the most important thing on your car is your tire, because that's what's touching the ground. And I would say that there's a lot of truth in that to be looked at when it comes to Crispi boots and why you're selecting a particular boot. Now, I wouldn't hedge your entire selection on the boot, but let's dive into and let me explain the various soles that are used on the Crispi models. And hopefully this will add like another kind of element of decision-making opportunity for you as you really hone in what boot is going to be ideal for your next hunt. So starting on the right here, this sole right here is called it's the Crispi Active Feeling sole. This is a unique sole. When I actually asked ChatGPT what this was, it said it was a light base with mega grip, but it is a proprietary sole to Crispi. It's found only on the Ativa Mid, which is a shoe that I actually run on a number of different hunts, primarily antelope hunting, or I've used it elk hunting when I want to like really quietly stalk in like very, let's say dry or loud conditions. I also use this as an everyday wear. And I use it a lot for just a camp shoe if I'm going into the mountains and I want to stay dry because it's got Gore-Tex. But this Active Feeling sole from Crispi is really identified. It has kind of not a very deep lug, so it's very, very close to the ground. You're gonna get a lot of proprioception from your foot as far as touching the ground and feeling that. I think from a stalking standpoint, you're gonna be able to be a lot more quiet than you would in any of the other soles. It does flex pretty well when built with this midsole. It gives a little bit of beef in the heel. It's got diagonal lugs that kind of go multi-directional, so it does have some grip and some options for you as you get into maybe varied terrain, or even if you're in kind of a slightly muddy terrain. Of course, this is not going to shine on like really like muddy or very dirty. A lot of like very loose rock or shale. I think this is certainly gonna be outmanned. But this certainly has its use, and I think it's worthwhile to think about why would you choose this particular sole, or why would you choose this particular boot matched with this particular sole. So that's the Active Feeling sole from Crispi. It is proprietary to Crispi, and Crispi works very, very hand in hand with Vibram on creating a lot of these different soles. The next one I've got right here on my right is the Crispi Claw. This guy is also proprietary to Crispi. It is the only sole that Crispi uses that carries the Crispi name, built in partnership with Vibram, but it does carry the name versus all the rest of the soles will have that octagonal Vibram logo, which is authentic to Vibram. This Crispi Claw is found on two boots that I've used, and one that is really my go-to right now. That's the Laponia Light, this guy right here, and it's used on the Thor, which is this guy right here. It used to be used on the Laponia when it was Laponia 1 and Laponia 2, and that boot has since graduated into a different sole, which I'm gonna talk about in 2 seconds. But the Crispi Claw is in my opinion, if you look at the shape of that sole, it's more of a running shoe, and less of a boot and more of a shoe type shape. To me, this sole says I can move quiet, I can move fast. If in the right boot, like Laponia Light, I could literally run a 5K in this thing if I had to. The lug depth is not terribly deep. It's a little deeper than the Active Feeling midsole or sole and midsole from that we found in the Ativa Mid, but it still has a decent amount of lug. It does have sharper edges, and that's the other thing that I look at a lot. When I'm looking at different soles, I'm looking at what the tread pattern looks like, the shape of the boot. Is it narrow in the throat? How wide is the heel from a stability standpoint? As you can see, if I hold this one up, the Mega Grip, that I'm going to talk about in a moment, you can see the various differences, primarily in that heel as well as in the throat of the arch area. So I'm looking at those different features, but I'm also looking at how sharp are these edges, because oftentimes we as hunters, we're looking at a boot and we're looking at how can this boot hold me in different type of terrain, from rock to even slick rock to logs, grasses, loose dirt, sand, etc. So think about that as you start looking at your next Crispi boot. What does the pattern look like on the bottom, but what does that edging look like? So Crispi Claw, really versatile, oftentimes teamed up with the EVA midsole that you see on the Thor as well as on the Laponia Light. Moving over to the next one I've got in front of me, this is the Circuma by Vibram. This is the only of the 5 soles right here, in addition to the sole that's used on the firefighting boot from Crispi. This is the only sole that is not proprietary or built in partnership with Vibram. You may have seen this on other boots in the marketplace. It's certainly one that Vibram uses a lot. This one is found on the Brickstall Pro, which is this guy right here. And one of the things that I love about this particular sole, of all the Crispi soles, this is my personal opinion, having used a boot, I've used all of these on various boots. This one is the one that I feel is the sharpest edge, the most gripping. You can see the difference. The Crispi Claw has a sharp edge, but look at the angle on the Circuma, and it's actually angled back away from the front of the boot. So that angle of attack, the sharpness of the edge, to me says this boot will grip, it'll hold, it's going to get really good purchase, and combined with the various mid flexes or flexes that come through the board lasting, the different upper materials, I personally think this is the best sole for very steep, very technical. I'm talking Alaska, I'm talking British Columbia, I'm talking like steep, crazy, nasty stuff, Montana, Colorado, etc. So if that's your type of terrain, I would highly recommend at least considering boots that have this kind of pattern if it matches the flex and the upper material that you might be looking for. So the Circuma, a Vibram sole, not proprietary to Crispi, but it's been used in line for a handful of years, primarily in the Brickstall family. But as the Brickstall family has graduated and kind of gone through some iterations, it's only found in a couple of the models from the Brickstall family. So I think I really dig this sole. But I do believe from a midsole standpoint, there certainly is better, and that's what we're going to jump into right now. This is the Crispi Mega Grip sole. This guy is the kind of the legendary tried and true. We find it primarily on the Guide and on Nevada right now. It's also found on Altitude, which I thought I had an Altitude here, but I don't. You'll see that on the Altitude. On the green Altitude, it's a gray bottom. On the brown Altitude, it's a black bottom. But the Mega Grip is really unique, in my opinion. A couple things. Number one, you see it's got a much larger toe cap than the Circuma, for example, or obviously the Claw, for example. So it's performing a little bit differently as far as how it attaches to the boot, how it kind of protects that. You're adding rubber basically to the front of that boot in the performance standpoint. It does have the crossbow framing, or the midsole that is also legendary and has been built upon, that we find now in the full control that I've got here on my left hand. But the Mega Grip compound, this is where I think this particular sole shines. The combination of I think a deeper tread than what we've talked about so far, or similar to the Circuma, maybe a more dense pattern as far as in the tread, and the stickiness. Now that's the thing that I love most about this particular sole, is the tread is very sticky. And what I mean is that even as this gets wet, you're gonna find you're gonna get really good grip. If you're not in wet terrain or out in conditions that are wet, this thing is going to absolutely stick, almost, I would say very similar to like a climbing shoe. On rock, jumping over logs, traction in this particular sole is extremely well. And one of the things that Crispi also did, which I think they enhanced upon and tried to build upon in the full control, which we're going to talk about next, is that this sole is designed to be what Crispi calls self-cleaning. Now granted, you're going to get mud and other things, other materials stuck in here, but the concept and the idea about the lug shapes and the design of the pattern is such that in concert with Vibram, Crispi tried to create a sole that as you move through dirt and other stuff, it will kind of expel that and not necessarily cling into that based on the pattern. If you look at the Claw, you've got these little teeny like canyons right here that oftentimes I think can fill up a little more readily than the Crispi Claw. So those are my opinions. That's my thought. I've hunted I've done a ton of adventures, backpacking, other things in this Mega Grip, and this thing is absolutely a winner. It's been a game changer for Crispi over many, many years. It's why it's continued to stay in the line all this time. The last sole that I want to showcase of the 5 soles that are found in the Crispi boots is the Full Control. And this was introduced here in the last year and a half or so. The Full Control is a deeper lug. And what that tells me, like what that means to me is this is, A, it's a little bit heavier. B, it's a little softer because now you have more rubber in, like absorbing that impact overall versus like obviously if I'm running the Crispi Claw, I don't have a ton of rubber on the bottom of this. It's not gonna be as loud, in my opinion, as the Full Control. The more substance you have in your foot, the harder it's going to be to walk quietly, in my opinion. The soft rubber does lend itself to walking more quiet than, for example, other soles that are in the market that I know are very hard, and you just can't get away from that thing just like clomping down and make a lot of sound. But you're not gonna be very stealth, comparatively speaking, you know, I'm talking generalist, than you would like in the Crispi Claw. But the Full Control really shines in a couple of things. Number one, like I talked about on the Mega Grip, the Full Control is built with enhanced self-cleaning capabilities. Number two, the direction of the lugs on the exterior and the interior are built so that you have different types of traction. As you're going uphill, you're gonna get more grip, similar to the Circuma, where you have that directional like backwards pointed lug. In the Full Control, that direction on the inside, I think, is going to be gripping more on the uphill. The outside is gripping more on the downhill or helping prevent kind of that slipping or moving down as you sink into whatever material you're hiking on, whether it be like mud or soil or sand or grasses or sticks or other things like that. It's very tacky, still very sticky like the Mega Grip, and a little bit deeper. This one right now is found on the Valdez and on the Idaho. It is a really, it's definitely, I mean, this to me, this is gonna sound funny, it sounds like it's a man's boot. I mean, this sole is a man's sole. This thing can stomp out things and take names later. But it's a very, very well thought out, and I think it's gonna become a sole that Crispi will embrace over the years. At Black Ovis, we certainly have been following Crispi and been a part of the Crispi dialogue for so long. We have more guys on our staff that know more about Crispi boots than I would say any other retailer in the country. So I hope this has been interesting to you as I'm trying to give you more knowledge about Crispi boots and about a part of the Crispi boot that isn't often part of the dialogue that I have with hunters and customers that come into Black Ovis or guys that are on the phone. So if you have any questions about what I've gone over here in the soles, or heck, if you've got comments or things that you've seen as you've been out hunting particular boots and how the different soles are working, we'd love to hear. I'd love to enter in that dialogue. So leave a comment below, call one of our guys, one of our gear guys. We'll get you in the right Crispi or hone in and help you understand like why particular soles might make a difference as you're looking at different types of boots for different types of hunts. Appreciate you checking in, and we'll catch you on the next video.